Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at another buffed Pokemon from the Season 26 balance update, and that is the buff to Politoed. Now these battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Akori, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now back in the day, Politoed was top of the Great League meta in the Weather Ball meta. It just outspammed everything, and with this buff to Mudshot, it gets that straightforward pacing back. However, the overall meta is at a lot higher of a power level now than it was back then, so the question is, can Politoed return to its former glory? So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and in game number 1, Politoed picks up a pretty tough lead, leading into Azumarill. Now unfortunately, Politoed is going to be completely walled here. Politoed farms up a ton of energy as Azumarill will look to connect with the Play Rough. Smart play would be to bank the energy and switch, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Sending in the Drapion, opponent responds with a Bastiodon, but Bastiodon is absolutely horrendous in the Shadow Drapion matchup now. With the nerf to Smackdown, Bastiodon just does not have the fast move pressure to farm things down neutrally, and that means Drapion's lightning fast pacing is just going to completely overwhelm Bastiodon in this matchup. Bastiodon fires out the Stone Edge, Drapion puts up the shield, and Drapion's already almost at 2.5 more Aqua Tails. This Bastiodon is in some serious trouble. Aqua Tail lands, Bastiodon now deep into the red. The next Aqua Tail will be enough to secure the KO, and Drapion has almost 3 Aqua Tails now loaded. Down goes Bastiodon, opponent sends in their final Pokemon, which is revealed to be Talonflame. And Drapion, it's going to get 2 more Aqua Tails here. Drapion just completely took over this game. Drapion going to go for the Crunch, anticipating the opponent will shield and wanting to fish for a debuff. They no shield, but the Crunch still does huge damage, and now in comes Politoed. Politoed already has back-to-back Weather Balls loaded. The first gets the shield from Talonflame, and now in comes Guzzlord. Guzzlord does need an energy advantage because the Azumarill did leave with energy. Talonflame is running Brave Bird. Brave Bird does do a lot of damage to the Guzzlord, but the thing Guzzlord has going for it is the fact that Bubble is not going to do a lot of damage here. Guzzlord farming up only 2 Dragon Tails away from a second Sludge Bomb, and that would be game winning. This is going to be close. Azumarill trying to get the farm down, but the Guzzlord hangs on. It's a Raid IV Guzzlord, not a great IV, but has just enough HP remaining to take the win. Down goes Azumarill, back in comes the Talonflame, and Politoed already had 2 more Weather Balls. The speed on this Pokemon is wild, and that is a good game. Hopping into game number 2, picking up what I imagine should be a pretty decent lead, Politoed into Altaria. That's because Politoed is incredibly fast to get to Ice Beam. Altaria has overfarmed quite significantly. Politoed more than happy to no shield because the Dragon Breaths are actually not hitting that hard. Politoed goes for the Ice Beam. Oh, what a catch by the opponent as they're able to save the Altaria and catch the Ice Beam onto Quagsire. Politoed gonna look to rebank an Ice Beam for later and send in the Guzzlord. And this is pretty nice because it forces the Quagsire to go for Stone Edge. Oh, they're actually not on Stone Edge, they're on Mud Bomb. I stand corrected, so a bit of an anti-meta moveset choice here from the Quagsire. Guzzlord lands the Brutal Swing. That should set up a very nice Dragon Tail farm down. Guzzlord would survive the Mud Bomb, but Guzzlord does not want to set up a farm down for the Altaria. So Guzzlord puts up the shield, exits with quite a bit of energy, and back in comes the Altaria. This way, if Altaria tries to farm down, they're going to take a ton of damage from the Guzzlord. Brutal Swing is going to land. Altaria throws on turn 1 of the Dragon Tail, knowing that Sky Attack will knock out. That means that Dragon Tail damage will not register. Back in comes the Polytoad. Ice Beam has already been revealed, so this should be a pretty safe bait. Altaria does put up the shield, and Polytoad will make it to the Ice Beam, but Polytoad is doubling down, going for a second bait. This is a bit of a risk. Weather Ball, no shielded by the opponent, and that could be a problem. Polytoad makes the last second Ice Beam, have to hope the opponent no shields. They no shield, they're saving their shield for their final Pokemon in the back, which is Shadow Drapion. The opponent winning charge attack priority does complicate this endgame, but also the opponent should have been ahead by a turn. They must have got 1 turn bring and lag there because switching takes a turn in that scenario, so the opponent should have always been up by a turn. But since they do win charge attack priority, they do still have win cons in this game. Akori is going to need a catch to secure this. The opponent now has to make the read. Will the Drapion stay in, or is the catch coming? It all comes down to this. Farming up to the Aqua Tail, there's the switch and the catch onto Politoed, and that is going to seal it. The opponent knocks out the Politoed, the damage is done, opponent sees the writing on the wall, and concedes the match. We hop into the next game, leading Politoed into Fortress. Thank goodness it is not Volt Switch Fortress. I feel like the vast majority of Fortress that I'm seeing in Go Battle League right now are on Volt Switch, and Volt Switch Fortress would be very awkward for this team to deal with. Now, the bug bites do add up quite a bit on Politoed as well, but at the very least, you're not having to deal with massive super effective damage. The opponent, instead of going for the Rock Tomb, just goes for the Sand Tomb. Sand Tomb will apply a defense drop onto the Politoed and force a switch out into the Shadow Drapion. Drapion already at the Aqua Tail. This team has such fast pacing. Politoed and Drapion only 8 turns to their first move, and Guzzlord only 9 turns. So this might be the spammiest team I've ever seen in the Great League. Unfortunately, this team is getting torn to smithereens by these bug bites, as this fortress has put in a massive amount of work. Opponent sends in a Marowak, and it's a pretty big surprise that they didn't just bring the Marowak into the Drapion when it was revealed. Marowak, in my eyes, ends up kind of shielding for no reason there because they could have very comfortably survived that Aqua Tail. Marowak will go for the Rock Slide, but it does not KO. Shiny Politoed hangs on with a fraction of HP remaining to land a critical Weather Ball. Now it's all up to Guzzlord. Marowak, if it had been last season, even with the non-Shadow, it would have taken the knockout, but that is what happens when you get a Mud Slap nerf. Guzzlord farming up, firing off this Brutal Swing, taking the knockout onto the Marowak. Hopefully it's something like a Jellicent in the back. It's an Azumarill, and if they have a bad Azumarill, this could be a win. A good Azumarill should be able to survive 2 Sludge Bombs, so it's going to be close. Sludge Bomb lands. It looks like they do have a good Azumarill, but I think Guzzlord may be able to make double Sludge Bomb into a Brutal Swing. Azumarill fires off the Ice Beam. Guzzlord burns the final Protect Shield, but Guzzlord should only be 1 Dragon Tail away from the game-winning move. Sludge Bomb lands. Azumarill barely hangs on, but Guzzlord does get there, making it to the Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing is resisted, but it KOs Azumarill, and that's going to secure the game. We move to the next match. Politoed is going to be leading into Wigglytuff. I'm very curious to see how this matchup plays out. Obviously, with a Guzzlord in the back, Politoed can never afford to pivot out, but Politoed's pacing should be a pretty big advantage here. Mudshot is going to be doing basically no damage, but my goodness, Politoed is spamming out these Weather Balls at alarmingly fast speed. Weather Ball number 2 is going to force a shield from the Wigglytuff. If Wigglytuff decides to go for the Icy Wind, they'll get a debuff, but they'll basically do no damage. Aggressive pivot out into the Shadow Drapion. This is a pretty big risk, because this means that the Wigglytuff stays alive, and when you have a Guzzlord in the back, you cannot let that happen. Wigglytuff lands an Icy Wind debuff, sends in Altaria, and this is very bad for Shadow Drapion. Shadow Drapion can do many things, but it has an atrociously bad Altaria matchup. Crunch after crunch getting launched at the Altaria. Altaria actually puts up a shield and gets debuffed. So that's a pretty big error from the Altaria. They did not have to shield that crunch, it was debuffed, and they could have survived it very comfortably. Now in comes Guzzlord, and Guzzlord should be able to trade a shield for a full farm down and actually leave with a move to KO the Wigglytuff. If Wigglytuff still had a shield, the opponent would have been fine. They aggressively pivot into the Wigglytuff, but now Wigglytuff is just getting knocked out by the Weather Ball. I think the opponent had all the keys to victory, but they shielded the Altaria for no reason, and they have a Jellicent in the back, and man, they were in a very good spot, but a critical shielding error is going to cost them this game, as now Guzzlord just runs away with it. Shadow Ball will get the Guzzlord low. The opponent throws a Surf for no reason. The opponent definitely not making the optimal plays in this game, but even if they went for the Shadow Ball, the Guzzlord would have been able to hold on and exit with the back-to-back Brutal Swings. So either way, whether they threw the correct move or not, that game was still going to end in the same way the moment they used that final shield on Altaria. Neutral lead in the next match, Politoed against Annihilate. Will Annihilate try and bluff a potential close combat, or are they just going to be spamming out the Rage Fist as soon as they get it? Politoed lands the Weather Ball. That's some pretty nice damage. The opponent has farmed up to the close combat. Politoed puts up the shield, gets baited with the Rage Fist, and now this is when things could get difficult. But the opponent actually ends up safe switching, saving the Annihilate for later, and sending in Azumarill. I'm quite surprised that they ended up pivoting out there. By getting a shield with the Rage Fist, it felt like they were in a spot where they could have taken advantage of that matchup, but instead they pivot out, they reset the Rage Fist boost, and now this works a lot better. Azumarill is going to take quite a lot of damage from the Drapion, and when Annihilate Bree hits the field, it's going to be back to its default attack stat. Drapion going to try and hold on and make the last second Aqua Tail. Opponent pivots into the Annihilate, but Annihilate fails to farm down as the Aqua Tail pressures the shield. And now this Politoed is just loaded. Annihilate is about to get completely overwhelmed. Annihilate puts up the shield, wins charge stack priority. Politoed can shield right back, and this Weather Ball, I imagine, should just about knock out the Annihilate. For the opponent, by getting that bait shielded, they could have stayed in and made life really difficult, but now they didn't really get any value out of that Annihilate whatsoever. They burned 2 shields on it, and Annihilate basically did nothing in this game. Back in comes the Azumarill. Play Rough lands onto the Politoed. Politoed gonna farm up, well past the back-to-back. In comes the Noctowl. They tried for the catch, but unfortunately all they're catching is an Ice Beam. Noctowl looking for the farm down. Politoed makes the Ice Beam. Politoed should undercharge here. Oh no, they full charged it. It knocks out the Noctowl, but now Azumarill gonna get to pick up the one-hit KO onto the Guzzlord. Oh no, that is a tough turn of events. Azumarill play rough, double super effective, takes the knockout, and unfortunately that game will end in defeat. Unfortunately, it's not getting easier in the next match. Tough lead leading Polytoad into Morpeko. Save switch into Shadow Drapion. Opponent does not even build up to the Aura Wheel. Instead, they're just going to fire off the Psychic Fangs to deny Drapion that full sneak. I imagine they'll look to pivot, and they do, sending in Mandibuzz. And they have a very glassy lead, but they have sent in an absolute tank in Mandibuzz. With Drapion being debuffed, I imagine Mandibuzz has a very comfortable matchup here because the Aqua Tails just basically do no damage. Mandibuzz, very poor charge attack timing there, firing off their charge attack immediately. Foul play lands, and in comes Politoed. Politoed is going to try and get a massive energy head start because Morpeko is very frail. The opponent's switch timer will eventually be back up, but if Politoed has a ton of energy, then it makes life a lot more difficult for the energy dry Morpeko. Politoed launches the Ice Beam. That does not take the knockout. Mandibuzz able to hang on. Mandibuzz fires off the foul play, and they're going to aggressively pivot back into the Morpeko. But by not just letting the Mandibuzz get knocked out, the switch timers are very misaligned. Guzzlord is a wall to Morpeko energy, but Aura Wheel will still do quite a lot of damage. Guzzlord puts up the shield. It's the Psychic Fangs bait, and that is the worst case scenario. Guzzlord reaching for a charge attack. I believe Morpeko didn't build up here. It's just the Psychic Fangs, and they know it. There's the no shield. Big error by the opponent. I guess they're maybe trying to burn their switch timer, but if they were worried about the switch timer, then they should have just let the Mandibuzz die and not aggressively pivoted in Morpeko. Morpeko gets knocked out. In the back is Azumarill, and Guzzlord is just going to be able to fully sweep this game. The Guzzlord is just so far ahead, and that catch just adds insult to injury. Oh my goodness. Getting the catch of the Ice Beam onto Polytoad. Opponent pivots in the Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz does get the farm down, but all that does is just feed energy to the Guzzlord. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Polytoad into Shadow Kyogre in the next match. Oh my goodness, look at that. Opponent save switches into Mew, and that is a crazy team so far from the opponent. Mew can run a wide variety of movesets. I would assume they're Wild Charge and Psyshock. Even though Shadow Claw is resisted, Wild Charge will do a massive amount of damage to Drapion, so Drapion will shield up and play to the CMP tie. Now the opponent is debuffed, even an Aqua Tail will knock out. Aqua Tail does secure the KO, and back in comes Shadow Kyogre. Anytime you're going up against a very glassy Pokemon, baiting it is usually a pretty good strategy, because they have to invest resources into the Mon. And Kyogre, I mean, even these poison sticks are doing so much damage to it. Drapion goes for yet another Aqua Tail, gonna pivot into the Polytoad. Kyogre does have a lot of energy. Shield comes up in case of a potential Thunder, but it's an Avalanche, and the opponent in the back has a Shadow Giratina. So they're running two Legendaries and a Mythical, a pretty cool theme team, but unfortunately, they are just getting absolutely whooped in this game. Polytoad even shrugs, saying, you know what, fair enough. Dragon Claw lands. It does not take the knockout. Polytoad able to hang on. Polytoad going for a full undercharge on the Weather Ball to set up farm for Guzzlord. Guzzlord gets the farm down. Back in comes Kyogre. Kyogre is getting outpaced, and this is a greatly Shadow Kyogre. It is not surviving this Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing KOs Kyogre. Props to the opponent for the spicy team, but unfortunately, that's going to be a win. Hopping into the final match, leading Politoed into Qwilfish. Qwilfish is a very cool pick. It's definitely on the spicier side of things, and that's a very nice catch, catching a charge attack onto the Shadow Drapion, but unfortunately ends up catching a Scald. That Scald did huge damage. I was going to say Qwilfish has a pretty massive learn set. There's a ton of moves it can learn, and it turns out that one was on Scald. This Stunfisk farm down is quite unfortunate because the Stunfisk, it really can't farm down a lot of things in most situations, but the opponent makes a pretty big misplay there. They didn't have to shield that Aqua Tail, but they end up shielding kind of for no reason, and now the Polytoad gets to apply a lot of pressure. Polytoad's Weather Ball forces the final shield, opponent plays to a CMP tie that they do not win, and it's just all going wrong for the opponent. Weather Ball gets them critically low, it's a CMP tie, Polytoad looking to shield right back. Polytoad shields the Earthquake, and that is very, very helpful. Polytoad will look to double shield and fully Mudshot down, and with Mudshot not doing a lot of damage, that's a whole lot of energy. And oh no, the opponent pivots into the Altaria. They're gambling that it's an Earthquake Polytoad, but it's not. It's Ice Beam, double super effective. Altaria gets rocked. There's the Weather Ball follow-up, and that is going to secure the KO. Back in comes the Quillfish. Even if this Quillfish is on Scald Ice Beam for some reason, Ice Beam would not be enough to secure the KO. And they are on Scald Ice Beam. That does a ton of damage, but Guzzlord thankfully is able to hold on. Guzzlord lands the Brutal Swing. That's critical damage, setting up the farm down of the Quillfish. All that's left is Galarian Stunfisk. That gets farmed out as well, and that is a good game. All in all, I think Politoed is definitely improved with this rework to Mudshot, and it does make it more of a playable Pokemon. I do think that Politoed's biggest issue currently in the Open Great League is the fact that Pokemon like Jellicent exist. Jellicent is just so insanely strong neutrally, and it just completely shuts down Politoed, that a lot of the time it's very difficult to pick one of the lesser powered waters when you have something that is just as neutrally strong as Jellicent. So I think Politoed is definitely a playable Open Great League Mon. I'm personally putting it more in the territory of anti-meta to Spice Pick, where you can have good results with it, but there are just strictly better options. I do think that the Weather Ball Ice Beam set is a really nice set, considering that if you're not running Wigglytuff Jellicent Core, then you're probably running Altaria and Empoleon Core. And Altaria and Empoleon Core, if you're running Weather Ball and Ice Beam, then Politoed has coverage for both of those Pokemon. So I do think Politoed, I'm very happy to see it back. I do think that it has some Open Great League play. It's definitely not going to be a very common Mon that we see, but I do a little bit miss the Weather Ball meta, which might be a crazy statement for those who played in the Weather Ball meta back in the day, because we were all very happy when it left. But I think time has gone on long enough, and nostalgia has clouded my vision enough that I'm saying, you know what, it's cool to see Politoed again. So I am very happy that Politoed is, at the bare minimum, back to being a playable Open Great League Mon. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed watching it, please do leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.